Is Russell T Davies leaving Doctor Who? I mean, there's been numerous articles this week suggesting that this is the case because of a quote that he said over on the David Tennant Does a Podcast With podcast. That was a weird way of saying it. The David Tennant podcast, you get the idea. Russell went on his podcast, and I've listened to the full thing, so rather than just getting out-of-context quotes from news articles, I thought I'd give you the full breakdown and the likelihood of what's actually going on. But we'll get to that later. First, let's run through a couple of the week's headlines for Doctor Who news. First up, speaking of showrunners, I mean, we're going to be discussing all three showrunners this week, but Chris Chibnall is adapting his new novel into an ITV drama series. It's not strictly Doctor Who related, but good old Chris, we love him. For all of you out there who collect Doctor Who merchandise, Character Options have just released the Third Doctor and Sonic Screwdriver Deluxe Vortex Edition set for the bargain price of $44.99. I mean, to be fair, when you break down the costing, like the Sonic Screwdriver bit is chrome plated or whatever, and then there's like a new head sculpt for the figure, but $44.99. I remember back in the day when I was a kid, like, look at this stuff behind me, when I was a kid, like, I remember going into the shop with my granddad and getting like a $6.99 Peter Davison action figure. And now they're like $49.99. You used to be able to buy like 15 of them for that price. The maths there was probably not quite correct. But I mean, this is a collector's edition thing. I personally am not going to get it, but look, if that's your thing, that's out now. You can go and buy it from the Character Options website. But enough on that. In terms of the cancellation of Doctor Who, because everybody in the media is still convinced that the show is currently dying, there was a little bit of drama over... I say drama. There was a hubbub. We're going to deem it a hubbub. There was a hubbub over on Twitter because people started noticing that Ncuti Gatwa had removed the Doctor, or 15, from his Instagram bio. This comes after reports that Ncuti Gatwa is leaving the role after Doctor Who Season 2. We know they just did a couple of weeks of reshoots on the latest the season that's set to air very soon. And the word amongst the street is maybe they're filming a regeneration for the 15th Doctor, and this will truly be Ncuti's last. Which was definitely not the plan all along. I mean, A, the reshoots. B, I was watching the Empire of Death, or it might have been the Boom commentary, one of the Doctor Who commentaries, like, the other day, and Russell mentions like a 3-season plan, but obviously they don't know whether Disney are going to commission it. The BBC's official line at the moment is just wait and see till after Season 2. Disney have said they want to respond to how well Season 2 does, and then make their decision on the future of the show. But I think this is just people, it's like the 8th Doctor said. Human beings, fascinating creatures, always looking into patterns of things that aren't there. Reword that correctly and that's your quote. But I think Ncuti just overhauled his Instagram a bit. He put storyteller as his bio, it's plain, it's simple. He never actually had the Doctor, I think he just had 15 in his bio to say 15th Doctor, so I think it makes sense, especially if he has actually moved on. I don't think it's like a drama against the show. I don't think this is going to be like a... Because I think some people were kind of worried this is going to be like a Christopher Eccleston situation where Ncuti is either forced to leave or there's upset behind it. I think if Ncuti has or does leave the show, it's probably on relatively good terms and just because he wants to advance his career over in America, which, to be fair, that's kind of what Matt Smith did back in 2013. Now, we'll delve into this whole next showrunner thing. There is this article we're going to have a look at afterwards as well. Disney demands the removal of Russell T Davies, and I'm going to do a bit of debunking here because I think this article is a load of waffle. But let's just first look at the Radio Times article. Doctor Who's Russell T Davies says there are conversations about the next showrunner. The forthcoming Season 15 will be Davies' full second run since returning to the helm. Now, this whole article is sparked by David Tennant asking Russell on his podcast, have you thought about your Doctor Who successor? Russell says, I'll play you a little clip of it in a second, but Russell says like, oh, it was much easier in the first era because he had Stephen Moffat, who, I mean, it made complete sense for Moffat to take over the show after Russell. I mean, here's a little clip of Russell actually talking about it himself.
You're contemplating leaving behind the thing that sort of set the fire in the first place there, right?
Yeah, except we never quite leave it behind. It'll still be on. Like
yes.
When we left, it was still on. And
it was still on, yeah. Sure.
So it's you feel like that party's still going.
Do you feel like part of what you have to do now is put your successor in place to...
So yeah, there's thinking about it. There's conversations about that, but it's hard. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But they better exist. I'm
Well, yeah.
not going to die in that.
Can't
job. Thank
end
you very
here.
much.
And then Russell says here about, they better exist. Imagine I'm at the desk. The cliche would kill me. And I do think it's a tricky one because the Doctor Who showrunner, like, because of the nature of the show, they've got to be at least somewhat of a Doctor Who fan. Like, there's a lot of law and a lot of rules, and if you just gave the show to someone that's never watched Doctor Who, I think it's a big risk, because they could, in one way, create this beautiful new vision, almost like soft reboot the entire thing, but at the same time, they've got to know the lore, they've got to know about the Daleks, they've got to know about just the way Doctor Who does time travel. Like, you can't just end up doing Back to the Future sort of time travel, or Avengers, like how they time travelled in Endgame. Like, there are kind of rules to Doctor Who's time travel, yet while saying this, if someone were able to come in with a new consistent vision, I'd kind of be here for it. But I think in the ideal world, the showrunner would be a balance of a genuine Doctor Who fan, but someone that has like a fresh take, a fresh voice on the whole show. Because I do love Russell, and obviously I love Stephen Moffat as well. Like, look behind me, I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan. But I do think the problem with season 1 was it didn't feel very fresh. Like, which is weird, because on the surface it's the freshest version of the show we've had in a long time, but it's what the Chibnall era did quite nicely. It felt like a different take, a different sort of feel and vibe and tone to the whole thing. I mean, people have suggested, like, oh, well, Stephen took it over last time, why doesn't Stephen just come back? And then Stephen Moffat actually addressed this himself over on Twitter. Matty tweeted, in the nicest way possible, literally anyone but Stephen Moffat. And then Stephen comes in and replies, Moffat must go, and I'm not even there, and I definitely won't be. So all go and be horrible to someone else. It's not my turn anymore. Which I think, I love Stephen Moffat. Like, it's a very fair point. He's not even taken the job. He's not even said he will take the job, and people on Twitter are already going, ugh, not Moffat. But look, I agree with Stephen's take here. I'm all up for him writing episodes on the odd occasion, but I do think it's somebody else's go. Now, we'll come to this article talking about Russell being forced out by Disney in a second, but first I'm just going to give you what I think should happen. I think Russell knows his stuff so well. Like, Russell is a genius. Russell's, if you need anything Doctor Who-y, like, it's in that man's brain. He should sit as a Kevin Feige type figure. You know how, like, in Marvel, like, Kevin Feige doesn't showrun everything, but he sort of sits atop the empire. Like, if anyone has a question or they want to commission a show or something about Doctor Who, they go to him. And I think that's probably the best role for Russell, because he's so experienced and so knowledgeable about the history of the show. He knows its lore, he knows its rules. If Russell is like the guy at the top, but maybe not showrunner. Like, I don't quite know what role it would be. Maybe it's its own thing. But if Doctor Who got a new showrunner, like someone fresh, and I can't lie, I'd even suggest someone like Sally Wainwright, who is already friends with Russell. Like, she's written Happy Valley, and is widely respected in, like, the British TV space. If someone like Sally Wainwright came in, wrote a new Doctor, wrote a new era that felt distinctly different, but Russell was also there, like, as a collaborator and could help with the more sci-fi elements. Like, I don't know if Sally Wainwright's done much sci-fi, but her writing of character is brilliant. And as I say, her and Russell are already friends. She's already visited the Doctor Who set. I'd also be more in favour of, like, a writer's room type thing. Obviously, budget-wise and logic-wise, it may not exactly work nowadays, because the TV climate is, it's in a tricky place. But yeah, if Doctor Who is to carry on into the future, I do think new voices, new stories, new vibes. Oh, and also, while we're here, Stephen Moffat replied to this not my Doctor type guy, which was, It's not strictly relevant to the video, it's just really funny. This guy commented,
"It'll be a mercy killing this time. Russell T's brain is so addled with PC self-censoring and double-think these days, he's utterly incapable of writing anything intelligent anymore. Even Moffat's episodes were low effort, phoned in recycled ideas, dumbed down further by Russell's rewrites."
and then Moffat just comes in and goes, "Oi! I do all my own dumbing down. Stephen, you're an icon." Anyway, this article, Disney demands the removal of Russell T Davies. This is probably, it's already hit a couple of, headlines. I reckon people might start running with this, and before they do, I just want to debunk it, because when you actually read this article and look at their source, oh dear. Anyway, Doctor Who might not only be losing Ncuti Gatwa, but according to new rumours from the UK, come on. The UK is your source, the entire of the UK? Anyway, Disney is demanding the removal of showrunner Russell T Davies amid the poor performance of Disney Plus Season 1. That's not all. It's also claimed that Disney's demand include the right to approve the new showrunner, and that Disney now wants the entire Doctor Who library for Disney Plus. Okay, first up we'll talk about the only logical and valid point there. Disney Plus in America and everywhere outside the UK should 100% be given the Doctor Who back catalogue. No questions asked. Streaming is all about binge watching. One of the most successful shows, I know it's a vastly different genre, but Friends on Netflix, that pops off on Netflix. The viewing figures are amazing because people can just sit down and binge the whole thing. Peep Show, like a cult classic which is getting more and more appraisal as the years goes on. It's on Netflix, Channel 4, loads of different streamers, and people like myself just sit down and watch all 9 seasons. The back catalogue for Doctor Who is insane, and Russell knew this, hence why we got the Whoniverse in the UK. I think there is a deal with HBO or something, who currently own the rights to Doctor Who streaming in America, like the new Who rather than new Who. So all of that stuff, I reckon, get on Disney Plus, and Doctor Who's viewing figures on Disney Plus particularly would skyrocket. But this idea that Disney are forcing Russell out, who are they getting in instead? Let's be really for real. As I discussed a minute ago, I think this is the difficult thing. There is no immediate logical successor to Russell T Davies for the moment. Russell has even said in interviews he came back to protect Doctor Who.
There was already a move from the BBC to shift it to a streamer. I kind of figured it might need protecting. And
right.
they very honestly said that to me. They said, we're going to need a producer who can deal with 1,000 executives.
Because there isn't really anyone who knows what they're doing at the moment, and that's not him being big-headed, but it's such a big brand, do you know what I mean? There's a struggle with people that would sufficiently want the job. I think people don't want the Doctor Who job because of all the negatives that come with it. As Stephen pointed out a minute ago, the amount of hate you get for just showrunning Doctor Who is kind of insane. This article then goes on to talk about Ncuti's departure tying into this, which I don't think it does. If Ncuti is leaving Doctor Who, I think it's because he wants to pursue acting and they don't know when Season 3 is going to be commissioned, which is a shame. I'd say it's way too soon for the end of the 15th Doctor, but it makes sense from Ncuti's perspective. They also point out that Russell is working on other projects, and yeah, Stephen Moffat was working on Sherlock and Tintin while doing Doctor Who. Now, it's not impossible that the show is in trouble or has been cancelled, but this article then goes on to say, we're hearing word about Russell T Davies leaving Doctor Who via I'm going to butcher this name, so apologies, but via the Tachyon Pulse podcast on YouTube, which is also behind the Sci-Trek channel that previously reported months ago that Davies is exiting the series. And, okay, look, we're actually going to look at this channel, this source that they're claiming is oh so valid. It's just a random bloke. You might as well use me as a source. Who wrote this article? Whoever did, I'm your new leak, okay? Russell T Davies is actually commissioning 7 more seasons of Doctor Who. Write an article about that. This whole thing is kind of based on this random guy just saying some random things, and it's also the sort of not my doctor rhetoric which has been thrown around for 5 years. Remember with the Jodie era there was that whole chaos in Cardiff thing? Come on. Who is this guy? So I think we can sort of safely, we don't need to discuss this article anymore. Look, I don't think Russell's going anywhere. I don't think he's being pushed. I don't think there's all this drama behind the scenes. But, as ever, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Also, if you're a long-term viewer of the channel, I did finally decorate the office with Doctor Who paraphernalia because the new season's starting soon, so I want the room to be a bit, I don't know, dripped out, as the kids would call it. Also, that picture over there, the Echo's Destiny premiere stuff, is currently just, like, balanced on the clothes drying stand, so fingers crossed it doesn't fall. It's survived the video so far. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. As ever, if you did enjoy, please do remember to like, comment, subscribe, go over to my Patreon. I'll be dropping a big video on there very, very soon, so please check it out. Really helps me out a lot. Like, comment, share, subscribe, you know the drill. Goodbye!